Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. We got the news from local and statewide, sometimes national, all kinds of interesting stuff to do with cannabis. And got a lot of interesting news stories, some talking about some local events. What I wanted to start out with was a story about Paul McClean, who's in the news again. Paul's been on our show several times, at least a couple times anyway. Paul McClean was the medical marijuana user well, I'll read it here. It says, the medical marijuana user threatened to sue the city of Springfield after police ticketed him for carrying the drug into a Springfield Justice Court, has instead accepted a $7,500 settlement that allows the city to deny any alleged wrongdoing in the incident. By settling the case, Paul McClean gave up his right to file a lawsuit accusing Springfield police of violating his civil rights in February 2010. When they issued him a citation charging him with marijuana possession. City spokesman Neil Ladandi said the agreement came about as a result of discussions between McClean and the city insurance provider. It was solely done to avoid litigation costs, and the city has no admission of wrongdoing. So there you go, folks. Springfield, Oregon Police Department running rampant again, out of control. We've heard of a second case. We don't know if the person's going to pursue anything, but where Springfield police acted inappropriately regarding a medical marijuana patient. Being a former resident of Springfield, the city of Springfield, I can assure you that this is not an isolated incident, and it's probably not going to stop too soon. Excuse me. City of Springfield hasn't defeated a law enforcement levy in the last 20 years that I know of, so City of Springfield, you get what you pay for, I guess. So anyway, Paul's got $7,500 from him, and I just read in today's paper that he's having another problem with the Springfield City Police regarding being ticketed for riding his electric bicycle and being suspended. So it just goes on. So I'll let you know how that one turns out. But and then another one is we're jumping over to Florida, but this one really tickled me, and this is one of the ones that I really enjoy talking about. Drug test protesters send urine sample to the Florida governor. A new political action group formed to protest Florida Governor Rick Scott's new drug testing policy for state employees is sending a jar full of urine to Tallahassee to save officials the bother of traveling south to the Florida Keys. Last month, Scott signed an executive order mandating random drug testing of state employees. The state legislature is also considering a bill that would require drug testing for welfare and food stamp recipients. The newly formed Committee for the Positive Insistence on a Sane Society, the acronym is PISS, said it was sending the urine sample to Scott to peaceably protest against his drug testing policy. It accused Scott of wasting tax dollars on unjustifiable intrusions into the privacy of state workers. In one breath, our CEO professes to be focusing on cutting wasteful government spending and laying off tens of thousands of state employees, while at the same time he announces a program to drug test state employees without any legitimate basis for such an invasion of privacy, wrote Attorney Robert Clinton in a PISS press release. The sample will be kept under lock and seal until it can be transported to Tallahassee. In this way, the committee will save Florida taxpayers from the expense of paying for individual drug testing in Key West, according to the press release. Florida Governor Scott is not, of course, the only American politician calling for drug testing of various segments of the population. Bills calling for drug testing of welfare or unemployment recipients are active in a number of states this year. Perhaps other activists will emulate the example of PISS, and frankly, I'm thinking that's a heck of a good idea. Our own legislature seems to be preoccupied with everybody's urine this year. There's been a bill introduced, same thing, to require drug testing to get assistance. Reminds our friend Reverend Will a couple years ago in one of the panels in front of or one of the hearings in the legislature. Our friend Reverend Will told the legislatures that he wanted to see every one of them submit to a drug test because they seem to be real free about telling other people they have to take a drug test, so he wants to see them take a drug test. So it was quite a scene. He had a standing ovation in that hearing from our side of the crowd, I can assure you that. Personally, I don't think we should drug testing anybody, but if we're going to drug test somebody, then we need to drug test the ones that are saying that the other one's got to be drug tested. But anyway, and then this is out of Georgia, Smyrna. This is Smyrna, Georgia. Smyrna. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Police officer has been fired following his arrest on marijuana and gun charges. A task force run by the Cobb County Sheriff's Office arrested Curtis Clyde Cook on Thursday and charged him with possession of marijuana and possession of a firearm. The Marietta Daily Journal reports that the 55-year-old officer was riding in a car that was stopped by task force agents because it had expired tags. During the stop, investigators said they could smell marijuana and he found a bag of the drug on Cook. Smyrna police officer Michael Smith, a department spokesman, said Police Chief Stan Hook fired Cook on Friday. A phone listing for Cook could not be located. It was unclear whether he had an attorney. So that's interesting because you know this happens to John Q. Public all the time. Routine traffic stop, and this he had expired tags and they found marijuana. So don't know how that'll turn out, but it's interesting when an officer of the law gets caught up in their own traps. And then quite a bit going on in Montana. The state of Montana legislature and a large contingency there in Montana trying to repeal the law. And this is the latest. It says a House committee bill that would cut the number of medical marijuana users by more than 90% is still sitting on Governor Schweitzer's desk, and as of Saturday, he had 1 week left to make a decision on it. Schweitzer faces several options with the repeal bill. Sign it and make it law, veto it, or send an amendatory veto back to the legislature, changing some of its language. Governor Schweitzer said he is still weighing out these options and hasn't decided on any of them yet. He added that he is willing to see if another bill dealing with medical marijuana will arrive on his desk in the next week. Though unsure of his decision at this point, Schweitzer believes there is a genuine need for cannabis by some of Montana's cardholders. If there are people that are legitimately helped by marijuana, then I think there are some, and I think there are some like that. I don't want to take this care away from them. So we want to make sure that we tighten these rules up so that the people who really need the medical cannabis are getting it and the people who are recreational users won't, he said. The governor has 10 days to take action after a bill arrives on his desk. The repeal bill will automatically become a law without Schweitzer's signature if he decides not to take action within those 10 days. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that one. And interestingly, when this repeal process is going on, the feds busted a bunch of dispensaries in that state, coincidentally, of course. But again, Montana, that's this little pendulum swinging the other way. Missoula, Montana. Medical marijuana businesses from around the state set up booths at the University of Montana on Saturday to take part in Cannabis Expo. Organizers said the goal of the event was to educate the public about medical marijuana as well as the businesses associated with it. People who stopped by the UM campus were able to visit booths and listen to discussions regarding the current state of medical cannabis. The Montana legislature has been looking at a bill that would repeal the Montana Medical Marijuana Act, and Heidi Hanford, editor of Montana Connect magazine and a medical marijuana advocate, fears that the impact of a repeal could have on jobs. This is supposed to be a job session. They want to take jobs away from me and caregivers across the state, hardworking Montanans. I grew up here. This is where I live. I'll stay here and fight, and there's a lot of us who are going to stay and fight too. The Cannabis Expo will continue from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. on Sunday, and State Senator Dave Wansreard, a Democrat from Missoula, will be speaking at 1:30. So I hope that went well, and it's good to know that there's people that are trying to educate the public the other way. And speaking of events, this caught my eye. This is in Richmond, California. The Deep Green Fest, the premier celebration of cannabis, health, and ecology, April 23rd at the Craneway Pavilion. From the creators of Earth Dance, an unprecedented high-energy, information-intense, and intensely fun 14-hour festival running from 12 noon to 2 a.m. on Saturday, April 23rd, Earth Day, weekend of 2011. Presenting a holistic approach to cannabis hemp in the context of Earth Day, Deep Green will offer a full day and evening exploration and celebration of cannabis and our relationship as a species to the world. Featuring luminaries, expert panels, and workshops, over 50 exhibitors with a gourmet natural food zone, evening concert, and late-night dance party, educational art installations, including the Hemp House. Top experts, industry leaders, artists, researchers, social activists, environmentalists, and journalists will convene in the San Francisco Bay Area on April 23rd for this groundbreaking public presentation of the personal, social, and sustainability dimensions of cannabis. So if you have gone to California or have an inclination to go to California, be sure and check that out and support that, that group. Doing some great work down there. And this is from our friends at ASA, that's Americans for Safe Access. This is the director and founder is Steph Scherer. Excuse me. She's saying the feds are here and they're making their presence known. In March alone, the DEA raided 26 medical cannabis facilities in Montana, 2 licensed dispensaries in California, and a doctor's clinic in Michigan. We need to fight back and prepare for our response as a movement to future raids. And unfortunately, the DEA has shown it's just a matter of time. ACE's Emergency Raid Response Program prepares patients, providers, and the community how to act and react during a raid. Because when it comes to raids, preparation is essential for an effective responsive effort. We're expanding the program to all medical cannabis states, and in order to do that, we need your help. Our text message alert system is vital in informing local activists when a raid is happening in their area. This creates a visible community protesting the raid. Sign up for ACE's raid alerts so you can help show the nation that federal intervention will not be tolerated. ASA has orchestrated over 200 emergency raid response efforts, which have protected countless victims, shortened raids, and helped frame this issue as a patient's rights issue in the media. We do this by training staff at dispensing centers, preparing action plans for victims, contacting attorneys for raid victims, turning out protesters on the day of the raid, and framing media coverage in response to raids. Your support is vital in ensuring this program reaches patients and providers across the county at little or no cost. So, yeah, that's on ASA. If you go to the, I think it's asa.org. Anyway, it's Americans for Safe Access. You can get more information on this, and this is incredible. They were in town here a few weeks ago and gave a great presentation on this subject. I learned a lot I know myself. And another protection that I just became aware of that I'm really excited about, and I want to start spreading it around, is if you have a grow site, whether it's legal or illegal, either one, the tip is to start putting up signs and posters about jury nullification. Jury nullification is a process that a jury can actually find a person not guilty of a law if they feel the law is unjust, and they can actually nullify the law. The legal system doesn't want juries to know about that, and they get really paranoid when the jury nullification people get around the potential jurors with their brochures to educate people that. But what a great idea is to put jury nullification notices and posters all over the grow room, so no matter where law enforcement takes a picture of the grow, they're going to have a shot of jury nullification, so that any jury that sees those pictures will be getting the information on jury nullification. So it'll either prevent narcs from taking pictures of your grow, or it'll help provide a defense. So that's a great idea. So I definitely, that's definitely promoted by DanK, so you got it from DanK himself. So anyway, that's all I have for tonight, and looking for guests. If you'd like to come on the show, tell your story, talk about cannabis, medical, hemp, anything along that line, please get a hold of us and come on board. And I'm sure people like to hear you much rather than they want to hear me talking. So anyway, that's the news we have for this week, and thanks for stopping by. And remember, never consent to a search. Never consent to a search. Thanks a lot, and we'll catch you on the next go-around.
And now, a message from the American Marijuana Growers Association.
Hi, I'm a farmer, and I work hard every day to grow high-quality marijuana, the biggest cash crop in these United States. I'd like to thank you for your support of U.S. marijuana policy. Because marijuana is illegal, I don't have to pay taxes. Even better, prohibition leads to artificially inflated prices, which means a better quality of life for me and my family, as long as I don't get caught. Just as importantly, your tax dollars support thousands of U.S. agents who work tirelessly to keep low-grade, foreign marijuana out of our country. So thank you, America. And remember, whether you're nauseated from chemotherapy or just in the mood for a nice cool buzz, choose the best pot in the world, American homegrown.
Our funding with Playboy came about partly because of my relationship with Ralph Nader and his people. When Nader first came to town, he had 4 young lawyers that would come every summer. They were called Nader's Raiders at the time, and they would all live in some cheap housing here in town. They would work long hours, and they were Ralph's assistants. You know, that whenever Ralph would identify something that needed to be done, these young eager beaver lawyers would get to work doing it. Well, I knew the person who ran that program. His name was Ted Jacobs, and I became social friends with the first 2 groups of Nader's Raiders, in particular those first 2 years. And frankly, all of them smoked marijuana. Ralph didn't, but all of his young eager young lawyers did. So on the weekends, on most weekends, I would get together either at my house or one of their houses, and we would smoke marijuana and listen to good music and talk about public interest law, all the things that young idealistic people do. At one of those sessions, one of his young lawyers named John Esposito said to me, "Keith, have you checked with the Playboy Foundation?" And we were in the process at that point of sending funding proposals out to any foundation we could identify where we thought it might be possible that they would give us some funding. And frankly, the first 8 or 10 we sent out, I didn't get anything back but standard rejection letters. I hadn't even been allowed to come in and interview personally. So clearly it was still considered by most foundations too hot to handle. But when Esposito recommended I contact the Playboy Foundation, I thought, you know, no harm in trying. So I did. I sent an application in, and before too long had a phone call back saying that they were interested. They'd like to hear more about the project. They sent someone out from the foundation and spent a day or 2 with me here in Washington when I was still working out of the basement of my home. He went back and reported on where we were, and apparently it was favorable enough that the next thing I was invited to fly out to Chicago and meet with Hefner and the board of directors. It was, you know, it was kind of a historic moment for NORML because Hefner almost immediately embraced the idea, and certainly, although he was technically just chairman of the foundation board, you can imagine, since he owned 90% of the stock of the company that funded the foundation, he basically could do pretty much what he wanted. Hefner had been someone who used to have been an alcohol drinker, but had given up alcohol some time ago and had become a marijuana smoker. And so he had a personal interest in the issue, understood that it should be legal. It was better for people than alcohol. So pretty quickly after that first meeting, Playboy offered us a $5,000 grant. That was the first offer. I was so discouraged when I first got that word that I actually considered for a short time not accepting their money, because I had just been hired at my first job after the Product Safety Commission. It was my fallback in case I couldn't get funding for NORML. And I wasn't quite sure I wanted to pass up this job opportunity for what was a $5,000 grant, and after the first couple of months we would have used that money up, and I wasn't sure there'd be any other money to follow. But the more I thought about it, I realized, you know, this is either something that I believed in and wanted to take a risk with, or it wasn't. And the fact that someone was willing to put up some money suggested that maybe it was a risk worth taking. So I accepted their grant. I passed up the chance to take a traditional job and never looked back.
Weed and weapons don't mix. But what about a concealed handgun permit and a medical marijuana card? That takes us to this woman in Oregon. Her name is Cynthia Willis. She's fighting for her right to have both. Not use them simultaneously, but to have them both. Police took away her gun permit after learning that she used medically prescribed marijuana to treat arthritis pain and muscle spasms. The cops cite the 1968, let me repeat, the 1968 United States Gun Control Act, which prohibits selling weapons to drug addicts.
We're not a bunch of gun nuts.
No, you're not a bunch of gun nuts. They say that includes medical marijuana users. But the woman and 3 other plaintiffs in this case say their state gun rights trump the federal law. And they've taken their case to Oregon's Supreme Court. So we will take it to our legal panel. The criminal defense attorney Randy Zellin in the House, former prosecutor Tom Caniff, also IE. What say you?
I think that this is a blatant violation of Cynthia Willis's rights to equal protection under the law. Owning a handgun, whether we support the Second Amendment or not, it's there. It's a fundamental right. Anytime the state is passing legislation that's going to infringe on an individual's fundamental rights, they need to show a compelling state interest, and they need to show that there weren't other, less restrictive means to deal with this situation. What are the less restrictive means? You don't have to put a blanket ban on her right to possess a handgun. You say, look, you're a medical marijuana user. You can't go to the range when you're high.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that you can't have a gun at all, period.
Mr. Z?
Not right.
Counselor?
I love Tom.
Oh, well.
This is why I
Comforting.
hate lawyers.
It's always bad when it starts with that.
Can we inject a little bit of common sense into this discussion? Who in their right mind could actually argue that guns and pot go together?
She didn't argue that.
Somebody smarter than me said 2 great tastes that go together. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Should we wait and find out?
What happens in the commercial stays in the commercial.
But wait a second. Let's not forget something. Marijuana, it's still illegal. It's a Schedule I controlled substance, which means the federal government says it's highly addictive. We don't give someone a gun permit who we know is going to be smoking pot. Should we have somebody next to her making sure she's not smoking and then going to the range? Common sense, people.
Randy, if someone has a prescription for Oxycontin, should he have to surrender his gun permit, or should you say that you can't take the Oxycontin when you're going out hunting quail?
Oxycontin is legal. Marijuana is not.
It is legal in Oregon, and you need a prescription to get Oxycontin the same way.
It's an exception. It's illegal.
Under federal law,
it's illegal.
It's illegal, but it's not prosecuted in states that allow medical marijuana.
But how about a little thing called the Supremacy Clause?
It's illegal to drink Budweiser while driving your car.
But it is not per se illegal to drink Budweiser.
But it's illegal
to smoke pot.
Not in Oregon.
So why wouldn't you say that it could be illegal to shoot weapons while you're stoned out of your mind?
It's too late.
But it's not illegal to smoke weapons.
Because now it's smoke weapons. There you go. I like that. You're right, Shep. You cannot smoke a weapon. I agree.
Seriously.
Should we wait? Why wait until it's too late? And there's a tragedy. You can't put that egg. You can't unscramble that egg.
If you use that logic, then to someone who possesses a gun permit, should there be a blanket ban on them ever possessing alcohol?
Well, what happens if someone gets arrested on a drug charge isn't it possible that they could lose their gun permit?
Yes, but we're not talking about illegal contact. The federal gun law prevents addicts. There's no allegation that she's an addict, and it prevents illegal users. Under Oregon law, she's an authorized user. That's the difference. Like someone using OxyContin, or like a Southern gentleman from Mississippi having a little Maker's Mark.
Went out to shoot some game.
But how would you? Wait a minute. Would you go shooting with a guy? We got to go.
No, I
would
wouldn't.
go shooting with the guy drinking Budweiser? Ooh.
How about smoking pot?
History says I've done that before. Gone shooting with a guy.
Not smoking pot.
Well, you know, a lot of people smoke pot. I don't know. There's a lot of weed out there, Randy.
And a lot of guns.
Are we talking Dick Cheney?
They don't go together. This is not you got chocolate on my peanut butter.
I wish Budweiser and guns didn't go together, but it appears to me they did. Attorney Zellin.
part of the world they do.
I mean, Attorney Kniff, Stoner Zellin, thank you both.
Versus Smith.
It's nice to see both of you. So you're flying on a plane, right?
But first, some say it could be a solution to many of Oregon's budget problems.
We're hiring petitioners. We are recruiting volunteers.
Why medical marijuana farms and stores are the talk of the town. That's coming up new at 8:30. New at 8:30, a new petition to legalize marijuana in Oregon is circulating. Supporters say Oregon's Secretary of State approved the form of the petition last week, and they hope to convince 90,000 Oregonians to sign it. KPTV's Jim Hyde talked to both sides and has the story.
If supporters gather enough signatures, the measure would appear on the November 2012 general election ballot. Supporters of the initiative say marijuana would be taxed and sold through state-licensed stores. The measure would also permit adults to grow their own marijuana for personal use. The chief petitioners also say the measure allows farmers to grow cannabis hemp for other uses, from diesel fuel to fiber to food. The supporters say the measure would raise $140 million from taxing commercial sales of marijuana and save more than $61 million in police, jail, and court costs now being spent on marijuana cases.
We're hiring petitioners. We are recruiting volunteers, and we also have an online campaign. The Secretary of State's provided us with a single-page, single-signature e-petition, so it can be downloaded on our website.
I'm against any marijuana store sales. I've recently lost a family member to drug use. Not marijuana, but I personally believe that marijuana is a stepping stone to harder drugs.
Supporters of what they call the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act say it would not change the existing laws on medical marijuana and DUII. Reporting in News Control, Jim Hyde, the 8 o'clock news.
Why them say you must not use the herb?